Hello, I'm Liv. Welcome to Rooted and welcome to my yellow bench. This episode we've got Hannah Leggatt joining us today, and Hannah is the Director of Sustainability and Environment at the Clancy Group. I'll talk in a minute about her career, but what's fantastic about this conversation is her story. She's actually just at the start of this year been listed on the 2026 social mobility list, and I mention it at the start of the conversation with Hannah, and you'll see as the story unfolds and as the conversation progresses, just really why she made it onto that list and why hers is a real strong story of social mobility and not following the kind of standard prescribed career path, but of doing things your own way, authentically you. And listening to your own instincts and your gut, and listening a little bit less to the naysayers and the people who tell you that it can't be done. So I hope you enjoy this conversation with Hannah. Tell me what you think afterwards. Okay, so on Rooted today, my guest is the Director of Environmen and Sustainability at the Clancy Group. That is one of the largest construction firms in the UK. They specialise in civil engineering, utilities and infrastructure projects. It's actually a family-owned and run business. Her career started out as an environmentalist working in this field. She's been working in this field for about 17 years now, working in lots of big name firms like Amy, Kia Group, and on the High Speed 2 rail project. And alongside this, she does all sorts of work in industry conversations around sustainability in construction. She was named in the Social Mobility List 2026, which is an initiative all about celebrating those inspiring people who are being role models really for social mobility. And she's just been nominated in 2 categories for the Women in Green Business Awards, and she's also just been appointed as a board member to Sustainable West Midlands. So all kinds of interesting activities to get stuck into. Welcome to Rooted, Hannah Leggatt.
Thank you very much, Liv. It's a privilege to be on the podcast, and really looking forward to talking to you this morning.
Yeah, it's going to be good. And we had a really good chat. It was a few months ago now, wasn't it, when we first met? And when you started telling me bits of your story and your journey, I was like, right, yes, we need you on this podcast. We need to hear this story and share it with more people because it's a really fab one. So I'm really looking forward to getting stuck into it with you. You know, we're going to be talking about the human side of this work, so we're going to be digging around in your story and your roots and the bits that you're most proud of and the bits that you found most difficult along the way. We're going to probably go less into the technical side, but feel free to, tell us a bit about the detail of your work if you'd like to. But yeah, we're really going to be digging into the real kind of how it feels to do this work. I'm really interested in you telling me, where did your roots in this work begin? It's a long career in environmental work. How did it all start for you?
So it's quite a story actually, Liv, because I didn't start out in environment and sustainability. So my background originally was in business management and finance.
Right.
So I'd actually gone to live in Australia for a few years with my sister and got the opportunity to do my qualifications out there.
Okay.
And specialised in business admin and finance and business management. So that was kind of where my focus had been. And I then came back to the UK after a number of years and got a job working in kind of like business management and finance, and was doing that for a few years. And then the business I was working for tendered for one of the area contracts that was under National Highways England, as they were back then.
Yeah.
And they weren't successful in the tender, and Amy won the tender. And then there was meetings and discussions around obviously what work and jobs were available, because obviously people were being tupied across to that contract as part of the terms and conditions of winning the contract from the other company. And they had discussions with a few of us, and I was one of those. And I remember it was a lovely lady called Elaine, and she came and had a conversation with me, and she was like, Hannah, these are the options that we have. Obviously, if you want to stay in finance, unfortunately, there aren't any roles within the local vicinity. We'd need you to move down to Oxford. Or we can look at placing you in another area of the business. And she said there's some roles potentially in engineering or environment. And as soon as she said environment, I was like, environment. There wasn't a moment's hesitation at all, because I'd always had a passion for the environment, for nature, for animals. Originally, I wanted to be a vet.
Okay.
But that unfortunately didn't plan out for different reasons. So for me, I was like, absolutely, got an interest in it. This is something I could really want to get into. So they organised all of that, and I essentially started as an environmental coordinator, really, coming in, bringing my transferable business and admin skills to the role, but not really having any understanding of environment, not done anything qualification wise. And literally just got tupied over into that team and started working from the bottom up, really. Worked with a great bunch of people and got involved in lots of different things, and really decided that this was definitely the area and remit that I wanted to be in. So I stayed with Amy for a number of years.
I want to hear more, but I also want to ask you, just that point where you were like younger in or earlier in your life, when you were really interested in nature and animals and wanting to be a vet and all of that. And then you kind of, obviously at some stage, did this turn into the business and the finance. Was there always this bit at the back of your mind of like, oh, it doesn't feel right, or I wish I could, or was there that in your mind through that period?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I was fortunate to have some great bosses when I was doing the business management and finance, and I've got a boss who became my friend and who is my friend now, a lady called Amanda Morris, who was fantastic boss and really encouraged me. But I did used to get a lot of people were like, Hannah, you can't work in finance. You know, you're too bubbly and outgoing, and because there's this thing, isn't it, that people have got around certain people that work in finance, etc., which is not right. But people were just like, but you're always interested in so many other things, and it was kind of like there was always a thing there that I was like, I'm doing it, but and I enjoyed it to a certain extent. But I think when I got that offer from Amy and they said, well, look, you know, Elaine said that there's these other options, there was something in me that knew it was time to move on, because I kind of like I wasn't really into the numbers, and when you're a finance person, you've really got to love things with numbers.
Help.
And
it
didn't really align with me, and it was not that I didn't enjoy it, but it didn't align my passion.
Yes.
And I knew that there was always a little bit of something missing, essentially, not in a bad way, but something that wasn't quite as fulfilling as what I thought things could be. So I think that for me, definitely, when that opportunity came along, I was like, I'm grabbing this with both hands, because something just in me said, this is the route you're supposed to go.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know, something in me told me that this was the path.
How wonderful as well, just to be able to listen to that inner sort of instinct, gut feel, whatever you call it, that says, yep, this is something that I want to, and there might have been all kinds of logical and rational reasons why, oh, you can't make a career change, or oh, you don't have the qualifications, all sorts of stuff like that. But actually you listened to that gut instinct that said, yes, this is for me. So isn't that great?
It is. And I think what was different there is I had to make a choice, because actually what I was working in, that wasn't going to be suitable anymore. So I kind of was at the point where actually I've got nothing to lose.
Yes.
Because, you know, I can't stay where I am doing what I'm doing, and actually there's this opportunity here. So actually I've got nothing to lose by giving it a go and seeing what happens.
So what sort of age were you then when you kind of came out of finance and moved into environment work?
So I was in my early 20s when that happened.
Yeah, so that's quite good actually. You were able to get that move in at a pretty early age, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I was quite fortunate that I hadn't embedded too quickly or gone further enough down that road that it was too late for me to kind of, even though I don't think even now, I don't think there's ever a time where it's too late. Because I think if, you get an opportunity and you feel it's the right one, you've got to take it and grab it with both hands.
Yeah, yeah. I think people can be afraid, though. They can be afraid to leave a career. And there's all sorts of stories or reasons that we give ourselves about, like it's not the sensible option, or it's not the responsible option, or it's not the safe option as well. There's a lot of stuff we learn in early life around that too. So yeah, it's to be able to go, no, actually I'm going to go for something completely different.
It is, and that's not to say, Liv, that I wasn't terrified, because it was something, it was completely different, even though I can't explain it. It was just something that was like, this is what you're meant to be doing, Hannah. But even so, I was terrified. That first day when I had to go into the city and meet the new team, and I was absolutely terrified because I had no idea what to expect. I didn't even know anybody in the team, because obviously my old team had been tupied across to somewhere else. So I wasn't even working with people that I had been working with. It was a totally different location. I'd been working probably 10 minutes from home in the old role. This was going into Birmingham city centre on the train and, being a proper big city job.
Yeah.
So it wasn't that, I wasn't scared, but it was just that the feeling of this is the right path was bigger than that feeling of being scared.
And was there anyone around you who was like really, you mentioned a couple of important people actually, but was there anyone there that was like really important influence in you being able to do that successfully?
Oh yeah, my sister. My sister is incredible. We're very close, and she very much was like, "You've got to do this, Hannah." And she's like, "I'll support you." She's like, "If it doesn't work, then it doesn't work, but you've at least got to give it a go." And that for me was like, yeah, definitely, I've got the support. I need to do it. I need to move forward with this and see what happens, essentially.
Let's fast forward a little bit then through that journey of your time at Amy and Clancy Group and the High Speed 2 Rail project, and now at Clancy Group. And when you look at all the work that you've done through that time, what would you say you're most proud of? Where do you think you've made the biggest impact?
I think I'm proud of the fact that I did take that chance and that leap, because if I look back now, I mean, if somebody had told me back then I'd be where I am now, I probably would have laughed and gone, "No, you're joking. No, I won't get there." And
why would you have been like that?
Because I don't think I ever realised that there was this career ahead for me. I think I'd never really been fully academic. I hadn't followed the normal career path or the normal career route, and that has had challenges. I've had people who've line managed me who've had a very descriptive view of how they think people should progress, and that has been a challenge. And I think I've always worked probably 2-3 times as hard, because I've been working with people who they'd gone down that academic route and they'd followed the normal career path. But I don't think I'd ever really believed it in myself that this was where you could get to. But I also think at the time, especially around environment and sustainability, there wasn't a lot really known about the sort of careers you could have, because it was still quite fairly newish at that sort of time, particularly in the construction industry. It was more of up and coming roles and an up and coming career. I mean, if I look now in the last 5 years, environment and sustainability has absolutely exploded. So it's a very different world. But I think I'm proud of the fact that I stuck with it. I think you mentioned about the being included on the social mobility list this year. That's something I'm incredibly proud of, because as well as environment sustainability, I'm so passionate about social mobility, social injustice, social equality, and social value. Making sure that I've been very fortunate that I've done really well for myself, and it's something now that I'm like, well, how can I pay that forward? I'm also really proud I have an incredible and phenomenal team that I'm really privileged to lead at Clancy. I've worked with some incredible, amazing people. And, like I said, worked with people who now have become my friends, who used to be managers, which I think is, really great to have that relationship and that great network. And I think being in, there's a couple of big ticket moments for me when I was specifically at HS2, where I was asked to support and present the all staff event, which was about between 14 and 1800 people. And I co-presented that. And I was asked by the exec team at the time to be involved in that, which was something that absolutely terrified me, but really pushed me out my comfort zone and really pushed me forward. Writing co-authoring an article that then got included within the ICE journal for HS2. So I then became a co-written technical author, which I look back and think, oh my goodness, that was absolutely phenomenal. To writing articles for the Construction Business Review Europe and the Tech Utilities Review Europe, where they named me in 2023 as, a leader of the year. There's been so many moments where I'm the pinch me moments, I call them, where you look back and think, oh my goodness, little old me, I'm not doing too badly here. And I think, that for me is just been some standout moments. And I always remember as well, two things actually. One of my best friends who I went to Vegas with, he said to me a couple of years ago, he said, Hannah, he said, I'm really proud of you. He said, because you've got to where you've got to. He said, and you've never trampled on anybody to get there. He said, you've always been the nice person that you are, and you've done it in the right way. Yeah. And that for me, I was like, wow, that's a really nice thing for somebody to acknowledge. And I remember doing the all staff event, after doing the all staff event, and the HRD at the time, a gentleman called Neil, said, the thing about you, Hannah, he said, is you were so authentically yourself. He said, and that comes across. And that for me is really important, because, I do try to just be who I am. What you see is what you get, kind of thing. But I always do try to live by that thing of being your authentic self.
And it really comes through, like when I'm speaking to you, it really comes through that, perhaps in that early role or early time in finance and business management, you couldn't there wasn't enough latitude for you to really be yourself. And then somehow in this role, which is more varied and a bit broader and a bit more kind of out there, you've been able to just be yourself, build the relationships around you in the way that feels right for you. And then, having all these moments of them being recognized for that along the way. And I think, the successful people, I'm doing inverted commas for the listener. But successful people, they is that often that feeling of, we're not putting on an act, we're not putting on a show, we're not putting on some kind of professionalism veneer. If doing that is really, really hard work and really high energy to do it and maintain it. So actually, if you can just go to work and turn up and be you, it's so much more enjoyable.
It is living it. It's exhausting. I mean, I remember another incredible manager I had at HS2, a lady called Diane Booth, who's now again also a really good friend. I remember her joining the business, and I at that point my aim was to get to environment manager. I was like, I came in as an environment advisor, and to me, because of how I'd come in, I was looking at, right, environment manager, I get to that and I've made it. I'm really, really happy. That'll be me. I'm good in my career. And I remember I'd just achieved that when she joined the business, and we'd had one-to-ones, and she said to me, what are your career aspirations? I said, well, actually, I'm really happy where I am. And I've made environment manager, that there's not really anywhere for me to go after this. And she went, oh no, Hannah. She said, oh no. She said, you haven't even begun to get started. And I was like, okay. She was like, she said, you have so much potential. She said, you don't even realise. She said, you need to aim for the stars. She said, because you haven't even begun on your career trajectory yet. And that for me, I'll be honest, Liv, it was a turning point for me.
When you say that, it's giving me chills of that feeling of somebody just like super believing in you, like you've got, and that you don't
You've
even
got
know.
this.
Yeah.
And she saw something in me that I hadn't even seen myself.
Yeah.
And to have somebody of her caliber who'd had such a recognised and extinguished career that I looked at, distinguished career, and I looked and thought, wow, if she sees something in me, maybe there is something. And that literally gave me the oomph to go, do you know what, actually, I think I do want to go further, and then started exploring, well, what sort of career options would there be? What would be the next steps? And then started having a career path and spoke to the great director, a guy called Peter, who was the director at HS2 in Environment Sustainability, who helped me put together a career path. And really then I started thinking, right, well, where is it I want to go? What do I want to achieve? And that is where kind of things... H2 really was the thing that was the turnaround for me career-wise. And it really accelerated in a way I could never have even imagined, to be honest.
And if you think about, I'm just thinking about social mobility and the little bits that I do know. I'm, by no means well versed on this, but the little bits I do know. The interesting thing that a more highly academic route gives you, I guess, is it gives you that sort of what's it called, like cultural capital, that kind of stuff of just being like, well, obviously you're going to get into these high positions and we're training you into them. It gives you the
gravitas and opens doors for you because people recognise that. Yeah.
It opens the doors, but it also opens your horizons of going, well, we're training you down this academic path so that you can ultimately one day be in this job or this top job or what have you. So people then come in through that academic route with this feeling of, a purpose. I know where I'm heading. Whereas if you come into it at a slightly different point in the process, with great experience behind you, clearly, that will have given you all sorts of great things that an academic route might not have, but you then need those key people to be able to open up here's the rest of the path and here's what that career looks like. And it sounds like you really had one or two key people in your career that have really done a great job of like opening up that path to you.
Yeah, definitely. And I definitely agree with that, Liv. And I think that's probably why I'm so passionate about social mobility, social value and that sort of element, because I didn't have that coming into it. And so for me, I want to try and make it a bit easier for others who find themselves in similar positions, or try and make it a bit more of a fairer playing field.
Yeah.
Because I have had challenges around that. I mean, I was doing my degree. I decided that I was going to do my degree in environment, but it was a harder route because I had to do it part-time whilst working. So instead of taking 3 years, it took 6 years. And, there was a lot of sacrifices made. And I had comments to me that were made about, well, until you've got your degree, you might not want to think about promotion because the likelihood of you getting promoted is probably non-existent until you've got the degree behind you because you're up against people who already have that.
Okay.
And I used to have comments like that, and I've had certain line managers who didn't really know what to do with me because I was pushing forward, and they were like, well, you need to follow this route. This is the normal route. You get the degree, then you go on the graduate programme, and then
Okay, you were really off the standard path.
Yeah, and they didn't really know what to make of that. And also I think there was a bit of an element of, at times, where you haven't got that degree element, so how can you think that you deserve or you're going to achieve that kind of thing? And that was a struggle, but I'll be honest, it kind of ignited in me, well, okay, I'll show you I can do it. You set that challenge for me, and I'll show you that actually I can do it because I know that I'm good at what I do. And that was only because, like you said, I'd had certain people around me that said, no, Hannah, you are good. Believe that you've got that and you can move forward.
Yeah. So
I think, it definitely helped in those times where I could go to people and say, look, these are the challenges I'm having. And they just reinforce, well, no, you can do it. So don't listen to what they're thinking, because actually it says more about them than it does you.
And it's funny, when you were talking, you said a little phrase, and it echoed this I think this exactly the same words that we've had on this podcast before, just like a few weeks ago. So Lisa Tennant, who was on this podcast, she is she's the chair of SEPA, the Scottish Environmental Protection Agency, and she's had this fantastic career in the boardroom as a non-exec, and then more recently as a chair. And she started in that world very young. I think she had her first board role at 33, and she came into that from a very non-traditional, non-academic background. She'd started up a company and sold it and done all kinds of things, but came into that from a different path. And she's sitting around these boards with all these people who are like, oh, but hang on, aren't you supposed to come up through the ranks? And aren't you supposed to do X, Y, and Z job first? And aren't you supposed to be in your 50s? And all the aren't you supposed to have an academic background and all this stuff? And she actually used that phrase, they didn't know what to do with me.
Yeah, very much so.
And it was almost like, it's like, hey, I'm here and I'm adding value and I'm doing a great job, but there's sort of people around who are just kind of confused because you're not sort of following the rules, or maybe not the rules, but like the playbook, let's say.
Yeah, definitely, Liv, definitely. And definitely I felt that. And almost like, well, you can't be expecting to be promoted or move into that role because you haven't done the same as everybody else. And almost like you haven't served your length of service. You haven't put the time in at the certain points that you should do. So actually you need to go back and do that. And it's kind of like, well, no, because actually I may have come a different route, but that doesn't stop me from being good at what I do. And actually that was kind of the thing for me. I remember having a review with one of my line managers at the time, and I remember him saying about that, well, the normal route would be this, and you'd follow that, and you'd go through this pathway, and you'd do this role and then move to that role. And I remember sitting there, and I turned around to him and I said, with respect, I said, and this is with respect, I said, I'd really like you to help support me where I'm going to go. I said, if not, then please get out of the way, because I am going to go there anyway. And I know where I'm going. I know I'm good at what I do. I have all this experience, all this evidence to support that I'm not just able to say that I can deliver. I have experience and evidence to support that delivery. Then please either help me or move out the way, essentially, because I'm not going to stop because you don't think I should be there.
Fantastic. That's a great story. And it's so often we get these naysayers along the way, don't we? And it's very easy to be to listen to them and go, okay, well, in that case, I won't bother then.
Yeah.
And that's the end of it, and there's plenty of people I talk to who have had, one or two people at some point in their life go, yeah, it can't be done, or not you, or whatever. And then they're like, okay, fine, that's it. So yeah, amazing to have gone, okay, well, with respect, I'm still gonna do it.
And I think it's what you said, Liv, as well, is it's about having that network around you that help you in those times. Because when you've got people around you who are like, no, and they will, I have been very fortunate. I've had people who have stepped in at times and gone, no, this is not right. That's not happening. You can go forward, Hannah. Don't believe what's being said. I think that is really true, because it goes back to that thing of they don't know what to do with you, and you're challenging their norm or their view or their perspective of the world. So it's like, well, no, you're not going to do that, because actually you've come a route that's different to myself, and I haven't got there yet. So why should you get there, kind of thing. So it is very much about, it's not about, and this is what I had somebody say to me, was it's not about you, it's about what you challenge in them that makes them uncomfortable. So it's more a reflection of them and how they're feeling than it is about you and your capability.
Yes, that makes perfect sense. When, as we've been talking here, you have really told me about some tough times, but by the sound of it, that you've experienced with these people kind of challenging you. And is there anything else that's felt difficult along the way? Have there been any other times that have felt particularly tricky as you've gone on? Anything more recently, even as you've come through into more senior roles? I think there was always the challenge around, until I got that degree,
there was an element of, well, you've got the experience, but you haven't got the technical degree ability behind you. So I think that was always a challenge. And I kind of made a decision early on. I started my degree when I was at Amy, and there was an element where I paid for some of it myself, and then fortunate that as I progressed through different roles, I then got it paid for by businesses. But that was something where I was like, actually, do you know what? This is something I do need to do. One, because I know that it's going to help my career, but for me, I wanted to be able to be in those conversations and have that technical ability myself. So I wanted to broaden my ability of being able to go, do you know what? Okay, well, I've got the experience. I've now got the degree. So what's left that you can kind of throw at me?
Do you feel like when you got the degree and when you sort of had that, I mean, clearly that must have been a moment of great pride for you, particularly with the amount of time, 6 years part-time doing it alongside work, and must have been an incredible feeling. But was there an element of, how can I put this? Did it really give you the technical detail that you were lacking, or did it just give you a little bit of extra confidence to be able to go in the conversations?
Yeah, I mean, I can remember when I graduated in 2022, it was one of the most proud, probably one of the proudest days I've had, because I was like, I sacrificed and gave up a lot, evenings, weekends, times when I didn't want to do assignments because I'd been working all week. So I was incredibly proud, but I would say it enhanced what I had.
Yeah.
And actually, I look back now and I think I already had a lot of that knowledge through learning on the job, through some great people that I worked with in my teams, people who took the time to, take me out. And there's a great person who took me out and did loads of ecology elements, and I got loads of on the job experience. And actually, I already knew quite a lot. And what was really interesting is when I was going through the degree, particularly later on, and doing the modules, I actually was like, I already know a lot of this. Actually, this is just solidifying what I already knew or what I'd already learned. So actually, it was kind of like the icing on the cake rather than the cake.
Yes. I'm thinking about, I had an experience where I did a postgraduate course at Cambridge, at the Cambridge Institute of Sustainability Leadership, and I really felt like, oh, now this is going to make me a proper sustainability person.
Yeah.
And I just had this feeling that I was like missing loads of knowledge and credibility and all this kind of stuff, because at that point when I started it, I hadn't been working in the field for very long. And as I was doing the course, I was like, oh, I kind of know this stuff. I mean, it was very challenging, and it really was extremely stretching in a lot of ways. And not only was it like late nights, but it was also, there was a lot of tears. There was some proper,
yes, I had the same, I will admit. Yeah.
I had some real tantrums of like, I don't want to do it. I remember one of the guys on my course had to phone me up, and he was like, I think you do need to just carry on with it. Like, don't quit. But yeah, I experienced that same feeling of like, oh, I felt very proud of doing it, but also it wasn't something that I had to do in order to be sort of proper. It was an icing on the cake.
Not.
Yeah.
It was definitely. And like I said, there was a lot of things I was able to use when other people were struggling, when I was in the study groups, who were struggling because they hadn't got that. And I was able to share certain things, and they'd be like, wow, Hannah, you know a lot. And I'd be like, but I'm actually working in the field that I'm studying in. And again, it was very much of, yes, there was a few things and certain things that I learned that was like, oh, I wasn't fully aware of that. But it wasn't fundamentally anything I didn't already know or hadn't already learned. It was literally just enhancing those elements. So that, I think, was really interesting, because I thought going into it, I'm going to learn so many different things. I'm going to, it's going to teach me and train me to be that person that I thought I needed to be, when actually I already had all of that, or knew all of it, or had learned most of it already. It was just literally enhancing what was already there, which was quite surprising for me at the time, to be honest.
Yeah, and particularly if you've been told so many times along the way, oh, you don't have this degree, so and now you realise, okay, actually, I do have the knowledge. So I'm just thinking now, as you kind of sit here and you've been telling me a bit about you've just been appointed to a board which one is it?
Sustainability West Midlands. Yeah.
So you've just been appointed to a board. You've been in your director role for a good few years now. So you've kind of at this position where I'm hoping you can impart some good wisdom to the rooted community and listeners. What seed of wisdom would you give for others from this journey of yours so far?
I think always be, as I've said, your authentic self. Don't try and be somebody else, because one, it's exhausting, but also when you're authentic, you as a person and your abilities and your skills really shine through. And, I get told all the time that, Hannah, you come alive when you talk about environment and sustainability. Your passion comes alive. And, people have said, I was on a course last week and I had a couple of colleagues, and this really made me, I was like, wow. They said we could listen to you talk for hours. And I was just like, wow, what an incredible compliment that, somebody would be happy to sit and listen to me for hours. I'm not sure after a couple of hours you'd feel the same, but so I think be definitely authentic, because actually you need to do that, because you will find that you'll attract and draw people to you so much easier than if you're trying to be somebody that you're not. I think make sure that you are very much, if you know where you want to get to, don't let anybody stop you. Don't let their concerns for what you make them feel that makes them uncomfortable stop you from getting where you want to get to. But make sure you're doing that in the right way as well. Don't be stepping on people to get where you need to get to. Make sure that you're doing that in the best way possible, but don't let anybody deter you from the path that you're meant to go down. And I think the third thing definitely is build a strong network. Because when times are tough, when you've got those certain cheerleaders in your corner, they'll be the ones that will keep you going when you face adversity, and when you have those people telling you, well, actually, it's not going to really work, or you face difficult situations, or where you've even gone into interviews and you've totally fluffed it and you've come out and gone, oh my God, I've absolutely done a horrific job in that. They are the ones that you can go and talk to and will build you up and help you see further than you see yourself. They'll see what you don't see at times, and they'll help encourage you to be that person that they see inside of you that you might not have even recognised in yourself yet. And I cannot recommend enough, a strong network will help you throughout the entirety of your career, even when you don't realise it.
Yeah, and that's such a great piece of advice. And I think a network, I don't know, when we say that, you can think of all sorts of connotations of, do we mean like having thousands of people in your LinkedIn? No, we don't. We mean some people who are absolutely in your corner. And maybe I think also, certainly from the kinds of things you've been talking about, it sounds like you're really good at staying in touch with people you used to work with. You've talked about a lot of people becoming your friends and really keeping a real depth of relationship. So it sounds like that's been really important, is to have some people there like mentor you or support you along the way.
Definitely. And I think you can also do that strategically. I was at an event a couple of months ago and I was speaking on this very topic actually, and I had some questions from people who'd attended and said, well, how do you do that? I'm like, it doesn't even need to be. I'm like, look at where you want to get to. If there's people that you see on LinkedIn or on social media who are working in areas that interest you, drop them a line. Contact them and just ask them, how did you get into the role that you're doing? How did you get into the industry that you're in? Because I'm really interested. And 90% of the time, people will be absolutely flattered and love that you've contacted them to ask them for some advice.
Yes.
So, if there are, even if you're terrified, do it anyway.
Yes.
But if there's people in your organisation who you look at and you think, oh, I really, really enjoy hearing them talk, or I'm really inspired by their career, reach out to them. Just ask if you could have a quick conversation, because you'd really like to understand how they've achieved what they've achieved. But also don't knock having people in your own circle in your family, in your friends. I've got incredible friends who are so supportive. I've got incredible family. My brother and my sister are my cheerleaders, and I go to them and I'm like, right, I've got this situation. I'm constantly ringing my brother and going, I've got this thing. How do you think I should approach this? And he's always advising me. It helps that I'm the younger sister, so I'm the baby, so they're always giving me advice and looking after me. But I think it's so important to have that support network around you, because like I said, when you do have those challenging times, and like we said at the beginning, how I got that opportunity and I could have gone, oh no, it's too scary, I'm not going to do this, I'm just going to stick with what I know. I was able to have that support network that encouraged me to go for it, Hannah, you've got nothing to lose, and we'll be here if you haven't. So I think that is so important. But again, you've got to listen to that inner voice in you. If somebody is screaming at you and telling you, go for it. Richard Branson says, go for it, feel the fear and do it anyway, or say yes and then learn how to do it afterwards. And that is so true, because the amount of times that you'll walk into rooms and you'll think everybody in that room knows everything. They don't. Nobody knows everything. Everybody's learning. Everybody makes mistakes. And actually, most of the time, people are happy to help support people along the way as well.
Yeah. There's so much. I was scribbling down on my notepad when you were talking, because there's so much there that is like, yes, all of this advice is so good. So I'm going to recap what I think you said, because I just want to repeat it for the listeners, basically, so they don't have to rewind. So you've talked about nurturing those close supporters in your family and friends. Who are those people that you can go to? And there is something about, don't feel afraid to ask those close people for help. They might not be in your industry, but they can give you a great perspective from their own experience and from the way that they know you. They know you really deeply, and so they'll be able to offer a really good perspective. And then secondly, you've talked about really kind of nurturing these deep relationships with key people at work who know you well at work, and who can encourage you and kind of give you that push when you need it. And then you've talked about kind of reaching out more strategically, finding those people who are doing the thing you want to do, and contacting them. And you're right, so often we hold ourselves back from this, and we're like, oh, what if they ignore me? And like, okay, like 1 or 2 out of 10 probably will ignore you, but think of all the good stuff, and the good relationships you can build with the 8 or 9 out of 10 who say, sure.
I think as well, what have you got to lose? You send a message, they don't reply. Yeah. That's the worst that can happen.
Yeah. I've said it on this podcast before, but if anybody saw the state of my DMs inbox on LinkedIn, of all the people I've messaged who've never replied, they'd think I was probably like a gibbering wreck in the corner from all these people ignoring me. But you just have to like, how can you share what you're doing if you don't reach out and contact people? How can you make that connection? People aren't going to stumble across you by accident,
And that's exactly what happened with us, Liv. Yeah. You sent me a message and I was like, oh, that sounds really interesting. And then I've ended up on the podcast.
Exactly. I was like, you look like an interesting person. Come and talk to me. And that's how it works, right? That's how it works. And you've said, listen to your inner voice. And when I'm talking with my clients, I talk often about, we have lots of different versions of our inner voice. We can have our inner critic and our inner judge and all these parts that are kind of telling us don't do the thing. But then we've also got an inner coach. We've got that inner coach that's telling us, this feels great, this feels like a good idea, love this, go for it. And we need to tune in and, like you say, listen to that part of our inner voice. And then, doing the thing you're terrified of. You've said quite a few times that word, terrified.
Yeah.
So in this conversation, you've said, you were terrified when you had your first day going into Birmingham on your new job, and you were terrified when you were running that event. And I think you've said it a few other times as well. But you kind of just have to do it.
You do.
Yeah.
You do.
How do you cope with your nerves in that situation? How do you deal with it?
I think the thing is the first couple of seconds, after you've got the first couple of seconds out the way, something kicks in, and I get into a zone and I just enjoy what I'm doing. But I think I was on a presenting course last week, and I was asked about how I do this, because I was involved as part of the course. enhancing our presenting skills. And I remember people saying to me, well, how do you do it? And I'm like, because I just do it so much now, it's become second nature. But that doesn't mean I don't get nervous. I still get nervous, but actually as soon as it kicks in, and because I'm talking about something I'm passionate about or I'm knowledgeable about, actually I'm more confident the more I go on.
Yeah.
So I think, that thing, and also make sure you have your grounding. If you're feeling a bit nervous, have a drink of water. Honestly, it really, really does help. Or having some grounding techniques to bring you back to the space that, know that we've talked about it, Liv, and what you do is that whole grounding element as well. And I think that is so important. But just go with it. Yes, it might be scary and terrifying, but actually I can guarantee the regret of not doing it will be bigger than the fear of doing it.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Fantastic point there. And I really feel like I've been doing quite a lot of little talks and events and stuff over the past 6 months or so, and I used to do them a lot, and then I stopped doing them for a while. Particularly, I just kind of after COVID, I didn't really ever get back to it. So there's probably a really big chunk of time where I didn't really ever stand on a stage. And then the last 6 months, I've been standing on stages, and bearing in mind that I, for a living, help people with confidence and with, doing the thing they're scared of. You should see me in those days running up to you, and I'm on the phone to my best friend like, I'm really scared, I don't want to do it. But she's like, just come on, you got it. And every time, as you say, it gets a little bit easier and a little bit more natural. And sometimes you just have to go, okay, I'm just going to do it.
You do.
And I'm going to just be okay with the fact that it might feel a bit scary, but it'll get better every time I do it. And then you can start to tell people and help people with their own challenges, and as you are kind of help bring on sort of another generation of people to be more confident in that world. So that's fantastic. I feel like there's what I want to do is I'm going to go and write up a whole load of bits of advice from what you've said, and put it on LinkedIn and things, and sort of hopefully people will come and listen to the conversation as a result, because I feel like there's some really good nuggets of wisdom in here. And it's just been really nice to hear your story as well, and just that feeling of there will be naysayers and there will be people along the way who say it can't be done, or not like this, or we don't know what to do with you. You're kind of breaking the mold a bit, and you just go, no, I'm just going to keep going. It's great.
Definitely. And I think I look back now and I think, wow, I'm in a business now, I've got so much support, and I'm doing a job I love, and I'm like, if I had listened to those people, I would not be where I am today. So I'm so glad that I didn't, and I just went, do you know what, I'm going to crack on anyway and see what happens.
Yeah, and such a great story. We end where we started, with that inclusion on the social mobility list, but such an amazing story of social mobility, and just getting to that point in the business world where you can now sort of go and help others.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, lovely. Well, Hannah, I think let's close it there. It's been a real pleasure talking to you. Thanks for coming on the podcast. And
no worries, and thank you for sending me the message, Liv.
Yes, see, you don't ask, you don't get.
Exactly.
Thanks so much. So there we are. There's my conversation with Hannah. Hope you enjoyed it. You can probably tell, just from the way I was talking to her, that I really enjoyed it too. And her story and her journey comes across so powerfully, but she's also learned so many important lessons along the way, I think, and hopefully you got a chance to really absorb those lessons and found them useful. And I think just that feeling of, okay, you might be terrified, but just go for it anyway, that really came through for me so strongly. So thank you again to Hannah for joining me, and let me know what you think in the comments, please. Like the podcast, please, and please do follow and subscribe so that you find out when the next episode is before anybody else. So take care. Thanks for listening. Bye.